What's up, family? Welcome back to the Stop Sinking Show, where we go from struggle to flow. You know how they say you're gonna wish you started sooner? Well, as much as I would like to, because it's a running theme in my life right now, as much as I would like to, let's not make this a conversation about remorse, of the time lost, but let's try and have less and less times in the future where we say this same thing, where we wish we started sooner. At least we can learn from this. The one thing that I see consistently, and it's funny when you find something that you are struggling with and trying to get over, you start seeing messaging of it all around you, your RAS. One thing I see consistently that I can attribute to me being less than I could have been today, which flipped on its head, is the thing I see in most successful people actually at work. People who achieve the most in life are consistently people who are most comfortable with operating under uncertainty. Those that have the lowest requirement, the lowest need to have it all figured out before moving forward on something. And I like how Ed Milet puts it in his recent episode. He says, the people he knows to be most happy and successful have a lower threshold of how good or how prepared they need to be before they actually start something. And the people that aren't happy or successful have this massive threshold of what they think they have to know before they can just begin. And of course, it boils down to something we've talked about before, which is how we deal with fear, and how some people, when dealing with fear, are frozen in place by it, and others face it and move in spite of it. What feels like a productive information gathering phase could well tip over into overthinking and procrastination because of fear. Jay Shetty, on his recent episode of the On Purpose podcast, talks about the difference between thinking and overthinking. And some of the criteria was just as simple as, well, how long have you been thinking about this? And is it structured thinking that's actually getting you towards a goal? Is it actually moving you forward? And no matter what list somebody puts together, ultimately, this is something for you to audit. No one really knows but you if your thinking or your preparation has actually crossed the boundary or lingered on too long. The definition of too long is up to you. Only you know that for sure. And if you're serious, you probably feel this tension inside of you. And that unease that you feel is probably a sign that you are conscious of this possibility that you are delaying action out of fear instead of actually putting yourself in a more prepared state. Only you know this for sure. And I say that because it all comes down to results and what you amount to at the end of the day in your final analysis. And nobody knows what that is, not even you. But it comes down to the effort that you're putting in and you understanding if you are actually getting yourself prepared to take action or you are fooling yourself and not actually ever planning on taking action. If you waste 10 years of your life thinking and then emerge more successful than anyone's wildest dreams, were those 10 years a waste? Tim Ferriss talks about this idea and the big domino. And I loosely remember his thought process, which was that at times he would spend months, extended periods, just seemingly unproductive. But if he made up for those months, where if not unproductive, he would have actually spent that time knocking down small dominoes and getting things done like most of us people do. If instead, he took that seemingly unproductive time and came out of it with some insight or preparation to knock over a big domino, which would then make up for any small dominoes that he could have been knocking over, he makes all those small dominoes irrelevant, then is that time really unproductive? And it's seemingly unproductive, again, only to the external party. No one knows. So really, no one can really tell you or give you a real answer on when you're preparing or planning and thinking is heading over into the over-preparing, overthinking category. And that's not to give you an excuse or to buy you more time. Actually, the longer the time you take, the bigger the domino you have to be cooking up. So if you're not out there learning through action and delaying your happiness and success, then you better be sure that your preparation is insurmountable to the eventual face with reality. And chances are, unless you operate at the level with the tools of Titans, that you are actually better off not putting this pressure on yourself, not waiting for some big domino, and rather than putting all this weight on your thinking and preparing to do all the heavy lifting, put yourself in the position to fail your way up the ladder instead. Trip and fall your way up instead of putting all this pressure on the thinking and this big domino, because unless you have the tools of Titans and you have the resourcefulness of a Tim Ferriss, chances are your thinking and preparing isn't going to be adequate when it meets reality. So putting yourself in a position to fail your way up the ladder is a much better and a much more suitable thing for the 99% of mere mortals like us. And to add to that, get ahead of failure even. Fail faster than the failure can even register as one. And this is quite the polar opposite of the overthinking and the over-preparing, which again, to remind you, puts undue pressure on you to then have the hopefully well thought out and well prepared for plan to succeed. And you know what they say, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face. Reality deals the heaviest blows. So all that prep doesn't guarantee success or opt you out of failure. What it does do, though, is exacerbate the pain of failing, because you had put this attempt to prepare for before you even take the attempt on a pedestal for so long. So the exact polar opposite approach is to fail before you even have a chance to fail. Fail in your pre-attempts prior to the actual attempts, and gather as much data from those pre-attempted failures. And I'll share a way that I do this to explain. When I start a new program or a plan to do something that I know I will start next month, I give myself a head start. In the 3 weeks leading up to the next month where I've planned to start, the 3 weeks in advance, I already changed my current plan to slowly morph into and build in what I will be living and expect myself to live with 3 weeks from now. So this 3 weeks in advance is like a loosened expectation trial version of what is to come. I start to build in the regimen, the routine, almost as to walk the track to get familiar with the terrain before game day, to take note of the potholes and all the issues that might pop up, way before it's actual game time and the clock starts ticking and I'm expecting results, because this is an emotional game. So before the 3 weeks comes, where is my start time, and I'm emotionally now attached to seeing the result, I give myself 3 weeks in advance of loosened expectation. Before I even bring in the weight of all of that, which is to come 3 weeks from now. And I take the 3 weeks before the actual start date to get in as many reps to failure as possible. I expect failure, expect to fumble during this time, and I don't have any attachment to what happens. I expect to be weak and just to go through a dry run so that my future self, 3 weeks from now, that will have expectations weighing on him, had my current self looking out for him to give him a head start. Giving him data on failures during the practice that will be crucial in adjusting expectations. Failing before the failing actually matters to my psyche. Again, polar opposite of the delaying the starting because I'm so afraid to fail and what might be unknown. Flipping all of that on its head and just walking blindly into the unknown with lower stakes and expecting failure. And I think most of us have lost the reckless abandon that leads to this exploratory innovation and greatness in life. I think many of us would benefit from less inhibited action, even if it borderlines on risky, just to break out of the pattern of guardedness that we bring to life. Instead of your story being, I wish I started sooner, let's just spend a year of our life aiming to say the opposite. Like, I wish I thought that one through. I was just going too fast. You don't think before you act. Let's see where that gets us. I love you, family. Stay true. See you on the next show.